So, I got a little bit of an announcement to make. I don't know if you guys heard it or not, but I've started a nonprofit called the Plastic Free Packaging Alliance. Did you see that post?
I saw your post, yeah.
Well, as a result of that, people have been contacting me. And one of the people that contacted me was brought to me through Sonia Magruder, actually. And their company has created a, do you guys know much about how injection molding works? So plastic comes in these little pellets. And these little pellets are melted down and then put into the injection machine, which is basically, you know, just a big cookie cutter. You know, the biggest ones will make 64 pieces of something at a time. The smallest ones may make one piece at a time. But either way, the plastic that flows into them is the critical part. And this company, for the first time, created a bioresin that acts exactly like plastic resin, but it's made out of bamboo. And so we're going to be taking those bioresin to a fuel to an injection mold. Dr. Luca won't let us put the pills in the flat bag because he's afraid they'll break, even though I don't think they will. So the aminos are owned by a doctor, and it's the only product we don't make. So we have to let him determine when it will happen. But we're giving him the way to make it happen, and we hope it will soon.
So with the bio,
Do you guys have your picnic blankets? Did you guys bring them?
almost did.
I knew, I'm like, we got to give them to them once they get there, or and nobody listened to me, but, or they won't bring them, but
We missed the memo.
that's okay. So,
But Camille did.
all right, there we go. So it's just question and answers. If anybody has anything they'd be interested in knowing, or
Safety on products. There was talk of there being a blog where practitioners and other people could. I've had a lot of practitioners ask about safety information on the products, and I know they're wonderful and clean, but they want data.
see, these aren't drugs.
I know. I
So
know.
here's what I tell them. I say, could I show you the safety data on this drug? And then I have like 20 different drugs that have been recalled, and they were all approved by the FDA and said they were wonderful. So I said, if you had looked at the safety data on those drugs, would you have used them? Yes. But look how it turned out. Because they're drugs. This is food. Okay?
Safety on testing, though, like the third-party testing and putting that so it's available to the public for people who want it.
So, yeah, here's the problem. There's people who will spend all day trying to find a blemish on your face. And they'll just keep asking for more information until they find something that they think is a blemish, even though they don't understand. So I'm not going to feed that. I don't need to. You know, our products have been on the market for 20-something years. We've never had a complaint, never had a recall. We've never had a recall. I can't name another company in this industry that's never had a recall. Okay? So our record speaks for itself. And we don't need to run around like, because that person just wants to say no to you. And they're using that excuse as a way to say no. And so what you have to tell them is, we've been in business for 20 years. Hundreds of thousands of people use our products. That's the safety record. Okay, that's called empirical evidence. And double-blind clinical studies, like I said. Has anybody ever seen a commercial for a drug, and at the end, for like a whole minute, they're talking about the side effects? Right? Just play those for your friend, okay? And because that's my answer. I don't have time for it, honestly, and you shouldn't have time for it either. You know what I mean? Have you ever seen a safety regulation on broccoli, ma'am? Okay then.
Yes.
So by the way, the FDA doesn't regulate food, they regulate drugs. And like I said, I've got a list of 20 different drugs that were miracle drugs that were put on the market that were recalled years later after hundreds of people had died and thousands had suffered. So what good is that stamp of approval even if we did have it? You know what I mean? Even if we did, what would it matter? Because we've shown that it doesn't matter. So no, our safety record is the fact that we've been in business since 1993, okay? Which is longer than a lot of you have been since you know what I mean? So we've been around, and our safety record speaks for itself, you know? However, what you could do is say, you know what you should do? Read the book, The Green Food Bible. No, don't read it. Just go to the opening, because the person who wrote the foreword to that book, if somebody get a copy of the Green Food Bible, just go to the foreword. The doctor who wrote the foreword is one of the most well-educated, well-respected doctors in the world. The Block Medical Center is named after him. It's the largest cancer treatment center in the Midwest. They're the best integrative cancer treatment center that I know of on the planet. And I never met the man, but I knew that he used our product, so I asked him if he would write the foreword to my book, and he said with pleasure. And he wrote things I would never say about myself, about me, because he trusts me to create products for people with cancer. At the time my book was being written, we were working together on those things. And so, yeah, I mean, if leading cancer doctors trust me, you know, and I don't want to brag because I didn't graduate from high school. I didn't go to college. I don't have any degrees next to my name. So according to the world, I have no credibility. But I want to tell you guys a little story. 1992, I'm sitting there and my phone rings. And it says, hi, I'm a writer for Inc. magazine. Do you know who we are? I said, yeah. You're like top financial magazine, you know, that there is. Better than the Wall Street Journal. He says, oh yeah, I'm glad you know about us. He says, well, we were just talking to the National Cancer Institute about you, and they had some things. And I'm like, excuse the expression, everybody, but I'm like, F those guys. They don't know nothing. They just want to give people drugs and radiation. And they said, well, slow your roll. He said, do you know what phytochemistry is? I said, phyto, huh? And they said, well, that's a word that just got created by the National Cancer Institute. And it means, they said that food is more effective at fighting cancer than any drug they've ever tested. I said, huh? And he said, not only that, when I asked him who was the world's leading expert on phytochemistry, the National Cancer Institute told me you were. And I said, I don't know anybody at the National Cancer Institute. And he said, well, they sure know you. That was 1993, and that's when I realized I had come of age. That's when I realized I had arrived. Okay, because before that, they were tapping my phone, threatening to put me in jail for practicing medicine without a license because I was giving people advice with nutrition and their health issues. And I realized you can't do that. We are not doctors, you guys. We don't give advice on disease. We give advice on how people could nourish and detoxify. And your body does the rest. Okay? Ann Wigmore, one of my mentors, she said, Dave, you desperately want to be a healer, don't you? I said, yeah. She said, why? I said, so the next person's Aunt Judy doesn't die the way mine did. And she said, well, you're doing it all wrong. She said, you're studying every book, learning every big word, like, you know. She goes, that isn't where the answers are, Dave. The answers are simple. Nourish and detoxify. Get rid of the stuff in your body that's not serving it. And put stuff in your body that will serve it. It's that simple, Dave. And she said, if you just keep it simple, Sandoval, then you just turn everybody you meet into a healer. You don't have to be a healer.
Wow, become a sage. Yeah.
And I said, wow, that takes a lot of responsibility off of me. You know? And I can't tell you how many of you came up to me, and I can't say it doesn't feel good, because it does. It's oxygen when you come up to me and say, you know, Dave, you healed me. What do I tell all of you? What did I tell all of you? No, I didn't. No, I did not. You did. I don't remember waking up in the morning and mixing you a green drink. Okay? And here's the thing, if you give me responsibility for healing you, guess who's getting blamed when you're not healed? Me. No way, guys, you're not laying that on me. If you want to be healed, you take responsibility for the amazing, awesome healer you are.
Yeah.
Don't give credit to somebody else. You're the one who made the decision. You're the one who healed. So don't you dare put that on me. Okay? I'm a farmer. I grow food. I provide food. I just happen to provide the best damn food this world's ever seen. Now, Carrie Drinkwine, are you here?
No.
Okay. So is she a legitimate badass or what?
Yes.
Right? She runs a center for regenerative healing. That means if you got crushed by a horse and you can't walk and the doctors can't help you, you find her. Okay? And when Carrie Drinkwine tells you that your foods are the most regenerating, rejuvenating foods that she's found, and her clinic couldn't be what it is without rejuvenative foods, it makes you feel pretty good, doesn't it?
Yes.
You see, our body just needs to regenerate and rejuvenate. And all plants have three things. They have blocking, suppressing, and repairing agents. And why do they have them? So they can survive. This grass right here, something's gonna come and poop on it, right? The sun's gonna shine on it all day. There might even be, who knows, a fire over there and soot and smoke, ash might fall on it. And this plant has designed defenses for all of that, for all of that. It's ready to deal with E. coli from the poop, right? It's ready to keep itself from freezing when it gets cold. It's ready to protect itself from the heat when it gets hot. All that stuff is called phytochemistry. The National Cancer Institute coined that word in 1992. Phyto means plant, and chemistry means the chemicals in the plant that keep it healthy. And what we do is we tap into that energy. We say, thank you, blueberry, right? We say, thank you, wheatgrass, okay? Because those plants, because they survived, okay? What, over millions of years, right? That means they dealt with all the stress that this earth has to offer, and they survived. So can't we learn something from those plants? That's phytochemistry. So anyway, next question.
I have one. Can you elaborate on the ingredients?
Yeah. So why does it say raspberry flavor instead of just raspberry? If you want it to taste like raspberries. Has anybody here ever eaten dehydrated raspberry powder? Doesn't taste like raspberries. But if you dehydrate strawberry powder and a little bit of turmeric and a little bit of this, you can mix them together and it actually tastes like a raspberry. And there's amazing people who sit all day just mixing organic, raw, vegan, awesome ingredients together and see what they taste like. And it's rare that a strawberry that's dehydrated actually tastes like a strawberry. If you want it to taste like a ripe strawberry, you actually have to use other types of fruits, some bark of this, you know, and that thing that we call raspberry flavor is organic, raw, vegan, an amazing thing, but because of what it takes to give the flavor profiles. Now, when you're not into raw, organic, pure, amazing foods, then you do that with chemicals, you see? So like if you get a raspberry flavor, there's no raspberries in that either, but they did the same thing. They said if we mix this chemical and that chemical and that chemical and that chemical, it'll taste like raspberry. So we just said if you mix this phytochemical and that phytochemical, we just took out, so we're just using different chemicals, but ours are from plants because that's all things are. They're proteins, they're carbohydrates, they're fats, and so we just mix different plant flavors. So believe it or not, strawberry and lime actually taste more like raspberry than raspberry does. And if you add a little bit of something else, like a mint leaf or something, believe it or not, then it takes on the flavor of a fruit. And nobody knows why, but these chemists who are masters at this, and we're really lucky to have 2 or 3 of the best who, at our disposal, But the answer is every ingredient is non-soy, right? Organic, plant-based, and it just so happens that we can't know exactly the secret sauce that makes it taste like raspberry, because raspberries dehydrated don't taste like raspberries. It's proprietary because if you write a song, you own that song, right? And other people may play it, but they can't own it, right? And so this is somebody's intellectual property. They worked really hard for years maybe to make something taste exactly like raspberry. And if everybody knew how to do it, another company would do it and they would be making the money that this person deserves because they wrote that song. As an artist, I knew you'd understand that. Yes. Yeah. So the guar gum is there. First of all, I think guar gum is a little bit overused, but it's not unhealthy. In fact, of all the gums, it's the only gum that I actually use. If you look, there's no other gums except for guar, okay? And the only exception is like acacia gum, which is a prebiotic. So in the barks of trees, just like maple syrup, there's a lot of good stuff in the barks of trees, right? The Native Americans found what they thought was a cure for cancer in the barks of trees, right? So barks of trees have a lot of good stuff, but they're highly processed sometimes. And most of the gums that you see, tick gum and all those, really highly processed. And that's why you don't want to use them. But guar gum is not highly processed, and what it does is it makes things seem thicker and it helps stuff, nutrients bind to your intestines. So it goes in and it sticks to your intestines so that your nutrients are absorbed slower throughout the day instead of all at once. So it's like a time release mechanism. And so now that's why we use it. Other companies use it because it's a great thickening agent. So it's used in ice creams, especially, right? And so people go, this stuff's in ice cream, why is it in my Power Shake? And the reason why is because we use it for the purpose of binding nutrients and letting them absorb slowly through the intestinal wall. Like we used to use activated barley for that, but then people were allergic to gluten, so we couldn't use that anymore. So we had to go out with the activated barley and in with the guar gum because it's gluten-free. Okay, but no other gums. Yeah. But she's right. It's overused. I mean, especially in candy, ice creams, cakes. But we don't eat a lot of those, you know. So, okay. Thank you. Hello. What's your name?
What's your name?
Joanne Broom.
Thanks, Joanne. I don't remember seeing you, so I'll just hear your name.
My question was, the bioregion has also the super xanthan in it, right? I was wondering how many milligrams, because if someone's taking super xanthan already,
Yes.
and they want to take bioregion too for the SOD,
Yes.
they're wondering if that would be like too much or wasting it.
So I read the studies, you know, on what because astaxanthin's so good, I wanted to take a lot of it, you know? So I wanted to find out what the upper limit was on safety. And at first, I don't know if you remember, because it's such a new product, at first they said the upper limit was like 4 milligrams.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, what? Like, I've been taking 8, you know? But now that's gone.
Okay.
They no longer think that. It's up to 10 milligrams a day.
Oh, up to 10.
Yeah, so I read that too.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
what? So I kept looking for more science, and that wasn't a very big study.
Okay.
It was preliminary, and it was just, they have to be short.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the company that we get our astaxanthin from is the most awesome. It's a Japanese pharmaceutical company, but they're not like a pharmaceutical company. They really care about, you know, about what we care about.
Right.
And they've done, and they do, yeah, it's just amazing. Our astaxanthin is, I think, the most important nutritional discovery of my lifetime.
Yeah. Wow, really?
You know,
It's amazing.
because everything else we knew about already. What else has been discovered in the last 50 years that we didn't know about before? You know what I mean? So yeah, astaxanthin is amazing. I mean, tart cherries are a close second. You know what I mean?
SOD, right?
Yeah. Well, Well, superoxide dismutase, though, has been used in science for like 100 years, though, because superoxide dismutase was used to keep cows and horses from going bad with arthritis, and then they started thinking, maybe we should use it for humans, you know? Yeah. So, yes. Oh, I'm gonna go here and then to you.
I just wanted everybody to hear this because last night I asked Dave a question about being part of the organic movement, and I think it's something that you should share about how we got here and why we're just so pure.
So I went through a really crazy journey in my life. Some of you know it, where my aunt died, and I was told that it was because of the food she ate, and I hated food. I just thought food must be like poison. So I went on this journey of being a vegetarian, and that led me to being a vegan, and then that led me to being a raw food vegan, and that led me to being a fruitarian, and that led me to be a breatharian. And for 16 months, I didn't eat food. I just drank wheatgrass so that I could build chloroplasts in my body and get my energy from the sun. And the question again?
Well,
oh yeah, the organic. So,
label, yeah.
and so I realized that at some point I had to start eating again, you know? And we had to find a safe place where food wasn't poison. And so we had this term called organic, but nobody could tell whether it was real, because anybody, like natural, right? You could say anything's natural, you could say anything's healthy, and there's no law that says whether or not that's true. And the same was true of organic. And so we would go in and test organic foods and find chemicals in them, and we said, this isn't working. So there was a group of people, and they created something called Oregon Tilth. And Oregon Tilth are these badass people who said, we're gonna write down every single thing that you can and can't do, that is and is not allowed, right? And that became the Holy Grail. So it wasn't me that created Oregon Tilth, okay? I just recognized amazing stuff, and other people did too. Oregon Tilth evolved into the Organic Crop Improvement Association, the OCIA. We called ourselves the Organic CIA. And we traveled all over the world inspecting each other. So if I had an organic farm, I could not know the people who came to inspect my farm. And I had to go inspect farms in far-flung places in the world, you know, like the Ukraine and China and Japan and all over, to make sure that they weren't using chemicals. And we just tested each other. And then we'd all give each other a report card. And if you got a good report card, then you could be in the OCIA and you'd get our stamp, right? So then the government came to us and they said, hey, I heard there's a lot of money in this stuff called organic. And I said, well, it's not about money, it's about a safe space, so that people who care will have a place to go, that they know it's okay, they could buy this and not worry about whether they're poisoning themselves or their children, you know? And they said, yeah, but there's a lot of money to be made in that, right? And then we said, yeah, sure, there's a lot of money to be made, you know? So they let us start doing what nobody thought they'd let us do it. But we fought and we fought and we fought and we fought until we got the USDA to certify our standards, so that, and to pay for the inspections, to where they got inspectors going in all over the place, you know? So we're not just organic by USDA. We're also California organic. We also have rabbis walking through here. We've got so many inspectors who could walk through our door unannounced and look at anything they want at any time, and it's weird. You know what I mean? Because like, wait, this is my house, you know? But we have to let them do that to prove that we're not hiding anything, you know? And I don't know the exact number, but one time I swear I got to 64 different inspections that we do. And I'm like, how do we do this? And they said, we have to do it. You know, it's how we get to that level that makes us Purium.
Thank you, Dave.
So, just so it evolved. And
Tiny bit about the USDA organic label currently and what you feel like the quality of that certification.
So what happens is I hear these things and people go, oh my God, organic's been ruined because they're allowing GMO. But so And then I look into it, and it's not as bad as people think. What they said was that if you are growing in greenhouses and you're growing on land that was not organic, that had been used chemicals, as long as you're not growing in the soil, and the greenhouses are just on the land, and you're growing in pots that are inside the greenhouses, then that could still be certified organic. And when I looked into it, I didn't have a big problem with that, because it means more and more people are trying to be organic, and they're trying to convert more land, and they can't do it yet. So they're going, well, how could we do it? Even if we can't, if the soil's not ready, how can we be organic now? And they said, well, then you have to grow above the ground if you want to use that ground. And so that was the thing that the big hullabaloo was about. And every time someone comes to me and says organic's been ruined, I look deep into it. You know what I mean? You know who I am. Yeah.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah. And so I look deep into it, and it's just, you know, like anything, rumors circle the globe before the truth gets out of bed, you know? So, yeah. Okay. And all of you who are standing up, thank you. You guys are amazing. Does anybody have picnic blankets to share, or do you want to go where we could sit down? Would it be better for y'all? Are we okay here? Okay. Next question. Rachel. Oh, I'm not Rachel. I mean.
About the gluten in the Revive-It-All, tell me more about what the gluten is in there, and like, does it have to be there? I want it to be so bad.
So the superoxide dismutase. So yeah. So I understand that celiac is a very serious condition, you know. And the thing is that, and don't be hurt by this, but the tail can't wag the dog. You know what I mean? Like, just because you can't have Revive-It-All doesn't mean everybody else shouldn't have it. You know what I mean? And so the thing is that in order to extract the superoxide dismutase, where it's extracted from, there's a small amount of gluten in that plant. You know what I mean? And it's just an itsy bitsy tiny homeopathic fraction, but that's not cool, so we have to put it on the label.
What plant is that?
What's that?
What plant is that?
Well, it's actually extracted from a ferment of grain. Yeah, so, and superoxide dismutase. So, do you guys know what superoxide dismutase is? So superoxide dismutase is the single most potent antioxidant enzyme that's ever been studied by science. It literally, now a superoxide is the most powerful free radical that is created in the body, okay? And a lot of times it can be created through strenuous exercise, all of my workout freaks, okay? A lot of free radicals created when you exercise. And that's why you have to be exercise in moderation, like all things. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, okay? But superoxide dismutase will actually not stop a free radical like other antioxidants do. It is, remember I said blocking? That stops something, okay? Suppressing, that means it won't hurt you as bad. And repairing, that's the rarest form of phytochemical. A superoxide is the most damaging form of free radical. And what is the next word after superoxide? Dis, which means reverse, mutate. It reverses the mutations caused by superoxides. That's how bad ass superoxide dismutase is, okay? Now, it's powerfully anti-inflammatory, so it was used in animal medicine for horses, okay, who had injuries, and for dogs as well. And then in the 80s, it started being investigated for use in humans with pretty amazing results. But the most superoxide dismutase is found in these young sprouts of grass after they've jointed. And that means they've started to create a little tiny inkling of a seed inside, but the seed hasn't formed yet. But during that time, now everybody pay attention, this grass is growing up and it's a vegetable, but then it's about to change into a grain. And during that time, over 1,000 different enzymes are created to literally break down this and recreate something else. And it is during that magic time called pre-jointing that we take our grasses that you eat. And the the Japanese pharmaceutical company that I worked for 6.5 years spent millions and millions of dollars studying this amazing enzyme and how it regenerates damage done. And in a study done at UC San Diego, we exposed human mononuclear cells to 20 different x-rays, 20 times blasted with an x-ray machine. And we literally saw the DNA. They had just discovered those microscopes that magnify and we could see cells. And we saw DNA unraveling.
Wow.
Genetic damage happening right in front of our faces. But then the most incredible thing happened. Dr. Yashio Hota took barley grass juice in a dropper and put it into the culture of mononuclear cells. And within 2 hours, you guys, we witnessed DNA repairing itself for the first time in history. And no one heard about it.
Piggyback off that question and ask about people, and especially young men and college students that I have that are experiencing onset of heart problems or wanting to detox from vaccines. Would this be a good addition to add to their regimen, like even just a ULT?
Any time that you want your body to rapidly repair it, green foods, the green drink you take every day has the superoxide dismutase in it. Your power shake has superoxide dismutase in it. That's one of the miracles of green foods. Okay, they're the richest source. But for specific purposes, like in the Revividol, it's there simply because when combined with other antioxidants, it passes through the blood-brain barrier and detoxifies neuroreceptor sites. So you know that when we lose our memory, it's not because our neurotransmissions, it's not because we don't remember up here, it's that the memory can't be grabbed, okay? The memory is there, it's in our files, we can't find it. And so our neuroreceptors, they're the ones who are supposed to find it for us. But as we age, our neuroreceptors get oxidized. The way that a penny, has anybody ever seen a new shiny penny? Aren't they amazing? Like you can practically see yourself in them, but a week later, right, after it's been oxidized, it looks brown. Sometimes it can even look black, right? Because that oxidizes. Well, we oxidize at the cellular level as well. And the thing that oxidizes fastest in our body is neuroreceptors. And so this amazing doctor discovered that when you add N-acetylcarnitine, with a simple antioxidant like alpha lipoic acid, that the N-acetylcarnitine would actually draw the antioxidant through the blood-brain barrier. And in doing so, he started cleaning up neuroreceptor sites. And in his clinical studies, literally people who had lost their memory, who were in serious cognitive decline, started having amazing recovery. And so I read the story and I called him. I said, "Did you patent this? Can I buy it from you?" He goes, "No, I want the world to have it." So I said, "What would happen if I added superoxide dismutase to your little mix?" And he goes, "Oh my God, that would be amazing, but most people couldn't afford it. And I want this to be available to everybody." I said, "Well, my people could afford it, you know?" So I not only added superoxide dismutase, I also added a pharmaceutical grade, a super low molecular weight ginkgo biloba. And if you read all the studies on ginkgo, you see the ones that say ginkgo doesn't work, none of them are done on super low molecular weight ginkgo because it needs to pass through the blood-brain barrier. And even the ones that were, but when you add it to N-acetylcarnitine, and it just pow. So if anybody's ever had a Revividol head rush, raise your hand. Because I'm telling you, if you're driving and you're exhausted, and you take 3 Revividol and a glass of water, within minutes you're like, It's that old rock and roll song my uncle used to sing. It's like 5 o'clock, my hands wet on the wheel, like seriously, like really amazing. No coffee needed, no stimulants needed, and the reason why is because it just wakes up your brain that fast.
The aminos do that to me.
You mix the two.
Okay.
The aminos in the Revive-It-All, and it works really.
Saving my
Speaking
mom
of
on
that, can you very quickly just extrapolate upon how the aminos are best assimilated into the body with or without food? With
Thank you for asking, Robin. So you remember the tail wagging the dog, right? So 5% of you will have your blood pressure lowered dramatically if you take the super aminos without food. 5% of you, and you'll feel it. You'll take the aminos and you'll feel weak a little bit, right? Because 5% of you have that, on the label we have to say take with food. But for the other 95% of you, just not necessary. I never take them with food.
And is it better for those 95%
To
are
take
they
without
more
food.
effective to be taken without?
Yeah, give them a head start. You know what I mean? You know they're pre-digested. Just give them a 15 minutes head start. And they'll move through the system before your other food even starts
At one
digesting.
point I heard you talk about how if you put other proteins in your system while the super aminos are taking their effect, that it lessens the effect of the super aminos. Is that true?
Absolutely. And now, will Dr. Luca admit that? No, because he wants to sell more aminos. Me, I just want you to have the best possible effect when you take
So
them.
what's the ideal amount of time to wait after taking the super aminos for that 95% of people for the aminos at their maximum?
So for people who want to take aminos, right, I would take fruit with the aminos. Just have fruit juice with them. Solves the problem that quick.
Better to have fruit juice? or
If
is
you're
it
if you're
best?
one of the 5%, take a no, because there's no sugar in biofruit.
But so what you're saying is for the 5% that would experience.
So I got to tell you a story. Luca Moretti would sit at lunch with us, get 3 packs of sugar, the white gross sugar, put 10 aminos in his mouth, pour the sugar into the water, and then drink sugar water to wash his aminos down. I'm like, Luca, because he's not a health guy like us. He's a protein guy. You know what I mean? Like his job was to help people who are on dialysis machines, people who are paralyzed, you know, people who are in comas, and they needed to build muscle or they'd die. And he found the most amazing way, and it just so happens to be vegan, non-GMO, and awesome for us too. But that wasn't why it was created. It wasn't created for us. It was created for those hospitals, you know, for those people, you know, because if you're on a dialysis machine, you can't eat meat. The aminos are pre-digested. They go through your lymph fluid. They don't even tax your liver or your kidneys. That's what makes them so amazing. So we just are tapping into the greatness of the aminos for our use,
And
you
I
know?
heard that the aminos are made from fermented garbanzo beans. Is that
Partly, they're made from legumes that are non-soy, and they are isolated proteins. So they don't carry any of the protein of the food they came from. You know what I mean? Because they're pre-digested enzymatically. So the enzymes break down the food, and then the broken down is put into a centrifuge. The centrifuge stratifies the amino acids, and then they're segregated that way.
So someone with a legume sensitivity shouldn't have any problem.
Shouldn't have any problems with them. Yeah.
Last clarifying question. on this.
Now again, just because of the, you know, for certain people, I say, you know, if you're allergic to legumes, I tell them not to take them, but I've found that they take them anyway with no problem.
Pre-digested is not the same thing as fermented though, because I mean, a lot of people are scared of the word ferment, so I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
say that.
Well, the ferment, and I don't care if I want to say it, I tell the truth, and that's the truth. So the
But they
ferment
are
is
fermented.
part of the process prior to separation,
Okay.
prior to pre-digestion. Yeah.
Last follow-up on that. When people are taking the aminos as part of a strict, like let's say protein or calorie counting diet, how many grams of protein do you count the aminos as, because they're so much more effective since they're being assimilated and have the higher net nitrogen utilization?
I would say about a factor of 5 to 10.
5 to 10.
Yeah.
Per tablet?
Per tablet, yeah.
And sorry, last.
Is this an interview?
Ideally, wait how long? Ideally, wait how long after taking your aminos before eating other things?
For me, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, yeah. Because remember, they're pre-digested. Yeah.
Dave,
Okay.
there was a number of 300 grams, like you would have to eat the equivalent of 300 grams of meat or animal source protein to get the same amount of protein from 10 tablets. Can you?
I would just use my figure. Just each amino is equal to about 5 to 10 grams of meat, if you were to eat it, in the effectiveness that it works in your body.
Thank you.
Okay. Each tablet, yeah.
Because the net nitrogen utilization is 99% versus like 10 to 35%.
Is Revival safe while you're breastfeeding? Or
Absolutely.
Dave, how is the BioRegen different than the Revival? It has the dismutase in it, so what's the use?
So she asked, what is BioRegen for? So BioRegen was actually a product I created for myself when I was in a head-on collision. And I heard someone else's story, similar story. I was in a head-on collision. My back was broken in 6 places. I'm an inch shorter now than I was then. I had so much bone pieces floating around in my body that I couldn't move without excruciating pain. And so I needed internal healing. So I just put together a formula for myself that would allow my body to internally regenerate. And that didn't help with the bone fractures. I drank raw apple juice about 1 gallon a day for almost a month until all the bone pieces were dissolved. And that was a miracle once they were gone, you know. But as far as the regeneration, that was BioRegen, and that's why I created it. And then Amy's like, why don't we sell this stuff? Like, we're making it for you, and it's like, it just healed you.
When would somebody reach for the Regen over the...
They're different products. Revividol is for your brain.
Okay.
BioRegen is for your tissue. Yeah.
You don't have the same effect if you crush it or you take it whole.
I know people who chew them. I wouldn't.
Seen that, Angelo.
I chew them like candy. 19-year love affair.
We'll get to you. Super green drink, and I do the importance of minerals. Is the greens you use like thrown on like super mineral rich soil?
So does anybody want to hear about my farms? Yeah. Okay. So don't go driving by, okay? But in southern Utah, there's an amazing place because there was a lake there, and it was there for thousands of years, and it dried up about 50 years ago. And when it dried up, it left behind, you know how a lake is, right? Like that. Well, it filled in all the siltation flowing in, and it just kept getting, you know, more and more dirt in it until it just wasn't a lake anymore, you know? And, but what was left behind was on the edges was like 15, but in the middle, 99 feet deep, rich of the most amazing soil you'd ever seen. Imagine fishes decomposing, shells decomposing, all the snow melt from the mountains coming down year after year after year. And so we did something called green manure. It's a way to create massive nitrogen in soil. And what you do is you grow alfalfa. And we had to let the alfalfa grow for a couple years till the roots got 10, 12, 20 feet deep in the soil. And then you cut the alfalfa and you just mulch it and leave it right on top of the earth, and it starts to attract worms. And then after it dries up, you churn it just barely underneath the topsoil, and now the worms come and they start to eat all that decomposing matter. Now, the alfalfa itself, its roots have something called ribosium. Ribosium is like an infection from the soil. It's like a virus that gets on the plant from the soil, and it hooks onto the root, and these big nodules grow, and then they die. And when they die, all the nitrogen that they had taken from the soil gets put into the root of the alfalfa, and that's called nitrogen fixing. Have you guys heard of nitrogen fixation? Nitrogen fixing, well, that's what does it, is these ribosium. The ribosium have a very short life, and so when they die, they outgas what? Nitrogen. So you got the worm poop, you got the ribosium, you got all of that decomposing matter from the lake bed. And this is, in my opinion, I don't know that there's any richer soil on the planet. I really don't. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember your history class, the Tigris and the Euphrates, how they called that the Fertile Crescent because of the way that the remineralization happened. Well, this was that type of environment. So because of our crop rotations and that, you know, I mean, this is like a 7,000 acre dry lake bed. So we're able to rotate our crops and use it in the way it's supposed to be used. And that allows for, the quality of the food that we grow. So it's about 250 miles from the nearest big city would be Salt Lake, maybe 300 miles.
What's wrong?
You gotta
Dave?
Debbie needs you.
we're gonna have to start transitioning.
Let's
so
do
we
it.
came over to give a warning. 3-minute warning.
3-minute warning. So
Let's go.
who's ready for the tour? So I got to tell you guys, we are like creating a balance here. So listen closely to me. We just barely got permission from the health department to do this because of COVID, because we're all those inspectors we told you about. Well, we're not supposed to have anybody in that warehouse. So we got a special exemption. Okay? And that means only a small group at a time. Closed toe shoes, and I don't know if they're gonna have you wear hairnets or not, but they might. Okay?
Let's all head over to the big
So
white
let's go
tent.
over to the white tent for orientation, but remember, it's a sneak peek more than it is a complete tour. Okay?